व्यतिरेकाभ्याम yatsat sarvatra sarvada. A person who's searching after the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, most certainly, I feel this is must, isn't it? Huh? Because must ही लिखा है फिर यहाँ पता नहीं यहाँ printing mistake. Because there has to be a verb there, no? Otherwise the sentence doesn't make so much sense. Must certainly search for it up to this, in all circumstances, in all space and time, and both directly and indirectly. Must. ठीक है, it has to be must only, otherwise it's the sentence is incomplete without a verb. Okay. So, etavat jigyasyam. So, jigyasyam, to be inquired. Etavat, up to this. Up to this means what? Up to what has been indicated in the previous verse. Yes. Till this point, this is the end of the search. So one is searching for the absolute truth. So the search ends when one comes to the point of realizing the Supreme Personality of God, developing love for Him. That is the end of the search. So up to that, one must search. Once one comes to this conclusion that the ultimate goal is love for the Supreme Lord, search ends. And this practice of devotional service, by which one can realize this, is applicable in all circumstances, all space and time. Sarvatra sarvada. Sarvatra means in all space and time, and sarvada means in all circumstances. Anvaya vyatirekabhyam, both directly and indirectly, one must search. So that is the meaning of the verse. And Srila Prabhupada has given one of the longest purports as a purport to this verse. A very long purport. And of course, every part of this verse, Prabhupada has elaborated so much. Of course, I think so. It's good to read synopsis from the CC, because Prabhupada's purport to the same verse in the CC is very concise. So I think so we can just read that. So it will give us a good overall idea, and then we'll get into some details. Very soon everything will be revealed. So that's Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela, first chapter, I suppose 55 or 56. Yes, 56. क्यों नहीं आया यहाँ पे? ठीक है, सबके पास है ना वैसा. Okay, anyways. Okay, some of you have got in your mobiles and all, right? Okay, so somebody can read.
Those who are serious about the knowledge of the transcendental world, which is far beyond the material cosmic creation, must approach a bona fide spiritual master to learn the science both directly and indirectly. One must learn both the means to approach the desired destination and the hindrances to such progress.
Okay, so this is what here, this is the meaning that Srila Prabhupada gives for Anvayad Vyatirekabhyam, directly and indirectly. So the meaning Prabhupada is giving here is the means to approach the desired destination and the hindrances to such progress. So both directly and indirectly one has to understand. So just like in the Nectar of Instruction, Rupa Goswami is giving second and third verse, what? So he's giving factors which help us to progress and factors which also impede one's progress. So that's what he's saying here. So directly is to know those which the means to approach and also the hindrances to such progress. Of course, here in this purport in the Bhagavatam, he gives another meaning. But anyway, both meanings are applicable. Okay. Continue.
The spiritual master knows how to regulate the habits of a neophyte disciple, and therefore a serious student must learn the science in all its aspects from him.
Okay, so so this is the process. To achieve the goal, the process is to approach the bona fide spiritual master, and the spiritual master will know how to guide the disciple, the neophyte disciple, and that's how one can actually learn the science. Next paragraph, Prabhupada is speaking about the grades and standards of prosperity or happiness. So material happiness, then the happiness of Brahman, and then finally the happiness of Bhakti, transcendental happiness. So that's the next paragraph. Okay, then you go to the next paragraph.
One should try to purchase a ticket to go back home, back to Godhead. The price of such a ticket is one's intense desire for it, which is not easily awakened, even if one continuously performs pious activities for thousands of lives. All mundane relationships are sure to be broken in the course of time. But once one establishes a relationship with the personality of Godhead in a particular rasa, it is never to be broken, even after the annihilation of the material world. One should understand through the transparent medium of the spiritual master that the Supreme Lord exists everywhere in his transcendental spiritual nature, and that the living entity's relationships with the Lord are directly and indirectly existing everywhere, even in this material world. In the spiritual world, there are 5 kinds of relationships with the Supreme Lord: Shanta, Dasya, Sakhya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. The perverted reflections of these rasas are found in the material world. Land, home, furniture, and other inert material objects are related in Shanta, or the neutral and silent sense, whereas servants work in the Dasya relationship. The reciprocation between friends is called Sakhya. The affection of a parent for a child is known as Vatsalya, and the affairs of conjugal love constitute Madhurya. These 5 relationships in the material world are distorted reflections of the original pure sentiments which should be understood and perfected in relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. In the material world, the perverted rasas bring frustration. If these rasas are re-established with Lord Krishna, the result is eternal, blissful life. From this and the preceding 3 verses of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which have been selected from Srimad Bhagavatam, the missionary activities of Lord Chaitanya can be understood.
It's very amazing how Prabhupada is linking the Chatushloki to the missionary activities of Lord Chaitanya. Okay.
Srimad Bhagavatam has 18,000 verses, which are summarized in the 4 verses beginning with Aham Evasam Evagre 53 and concluding with Yat Syat Sarvatra Sarvada 56. In the first of these verses, 53, the transcendental nature of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is explained.
So this is a nice summary of the Chatushloki, Prabhupada. Okay.
The second verse, 54, further explains that the Lord is detached from the workings of the material energy, Maya. The living entities, although parts and parcels of Lord Krishna, are prone to be controlled by the external energy. Therefore, although they are spiritual, in the material world they are encased in bodies of material energy. The eternal relationship of the living entities with the Supreme Lord is explained in that verse. The next verse, 55, instructs that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by his inconceivable energies, is simultaneously one with and different from the living entities and the material energy. This knowledge is called Achintya Bheda Abheda Tattva. When an individual living entity surrenders to the Supreme Lord Krishna, he can then develop natural transcendental love for him. This surrendering process should be the primary concern of a human being. In the next verse, 56, it is said that a conditioned soul must ultimately approach a bona fide spiritual master and try to understand perfectly the material and spiritual worlds and his own existential position. Here the words Anvaya Vyatireka directly and indirectly suggest that one must learn the process of devotional service in its 2 aspects. One must directly execute the process of devotional service and indirectly avoid the impediments to progress.
Okay, fine. So that's Prabhupada's very concise explanation of the verse over here in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Now we'll go to the elaborate purport that Srila Prabhupada has given in the Bhagavatam. So, since it's a very elaborate purport, I will just read a few important statements. And if you have any difficulty to catch up where we are reading from, you can kindly ask. So, we will indicate where it is. So, the first sentence of the purport. To unfold the mystery of Bhakti Yoga as it is explained in the previous verse, it was mentioned that there's a mystery. What mystery? Pure love of God. That is the mystery. And so therefore to unfold that mystery or to understand that mystery as to what is the goal of the practice of devotional service is the ultimate stage of all inquiries or the highest objective for the inquiry. So that's the highest objective. That's the ultimate goal, to come to the platform of loving God. And then Srila Prabhupada is explaining how everyone is searching after self-realization in different ways. Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Dhyan Yoga, Raj Yoga, Bhakti Yoga. So there are all these different processes. But then the ultimate goal of all these processes is to come to the platform of pure love of God. Then that is ultimate perfection. If one doesn't come to that point, then one's perfection has not been reached. Then the goal has not been reached. Next paragraph. The Vedanta Sutra philosophy begins with this inquiry about life. What is that? Athato Brahma Jigyasa. That is the beginning. That is the beginning, and the goal is pure love. And the Bhagavatam answers such inquiries up to this point, or the mystery of all inquiries. Lord Brahma wanted to be perfectly educated with the personality of Godhead, and here is the answer by the Lord, finished in 4 nutshell verses. From Aham Eva to this verse, Etavad Eva. This is the end of all self-realization processes. This is the end. So if one comes to this point of understanding love of God, that is the end of all self-realization process. But then Prabhupada writes, men do not know that the ultimate goal of life is Vishnu or the Supreme Personality of Godhead due to being bewildered by the glaring reflection in the darkness. And as such, everyone is entering into the darkest region of material existence, driven by the uncontrolled senses. So because of the impetus for sense gratification, then it becomes very difficult for one to come to this point of understanding Vishnu and what to speak of loving the Supreme Lord. Further down, but here is the real goal of life. and everyone should know it by inquiries put before a bona fide master, expert in the science of Bhakti Yoga, or from a living personality of Bhagavatam life. Okay, that's the point Srila Prabhupada is emphasizing in the Chaitanya Charitamrita purport also, that one has to understand the process by approaching a bona fide spiritual master. So it's not possible to understand on one's own by mental speculation, by concoctions. It is not possible for one to understand this. So Prabhupada keeps repeating this point that one has to understand it from a bona fide spiritual master. So further down again, Prabhupada writes that everyone is engaged in various kinds of scriptural inquiries, but the Srimad Bhagavatam gives answers to all of the various students of self-realization. This ultimate objective of life is not to be searched out without great labor or perseverance. One who is imbued with such sincere inquiries must ask the bona fide spiritual master in the disciplic succession from Brahmaji, and that is the direction given here. Because the mystery was disclosed before Brahmaji by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the mystery of all such inquiries regarding self-realization must be put before a spiritual master who is directly the representative of the Lord, acknowledged in that disciplic succession. So you see, Prabhupada keeps repeating this entire paragraph. You'll see, Prabhupada keeps repeating this point a number of times, that how one must approach a bona fide spiritual master and learn the science from him. Such a bona fide spiritual master is able to clear up the whole thing by evidence from the revealed scriptures, both direct and indirect. So here Srila Prabhupada gives another meaning to direct and indirect, and here is referring to direct and indirect evidences from the scriptures, which is going to explain further. But that's the second meaning Prabhupada is giving here, the meaning of direct and indirect. Although everyone is free to consult the revealed scriptures in this connection, one still requires the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, and that is the direction in this verse. Very important statement. Especially these days, scriptures are available so easily, correct? Thanks to Google God. Just type what scripture you want and you get the whole thing, correct? So easy. And so then people think, oh, we have all the scriptures, we can read. Why to approach Guru? Why to take guidance, consultation? Oh, most probably I know more than my Guru. Correct? My Guru doesn't know so much scripture. I'm a better scholar than him. Correct? Sometimes young people do think like that. And the Prabhupada is making the point very clear. Although everyone is free to consult the revealed scriptures in this connection, one still requires the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, and that is the in this verse. That's the point Prabhupada is emphasizing. Both you can see in the CC purport as well as in this purport. Prabhupada is emphasizing that point. The bona fide spiritual master is the most confidential representative of the Lord, and one must receive direction from the spiritual master in the same spirit that Brahmaji received it from the personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. The bona fide spiritual master in that bona fide chain of disciplic succession never claims to be the Lord himself, although such a spiritual master is greater than the Lord in the sense that he can deliver the Lord by his personally realized experience. The Lord is not to be found, note down this statement, the Lord is not to be found simply by education or by a good fertile brain, but surely he can be found by the sincere students through the transparent medium of the bona fide spiritual master. Very important statement. The Lord is not to be found simply by education or by a good fertile brain, but surely he can be found by the sincere student through the transparent medium of the bona fide spiritual master. That is how one can achieve the goal. There's no other means. And the revealed scriptures give directions directly to this end. But because the bewildered living entities are blinded by the glaring reflection in the darkness. Prabhupada keeps repeating that point. Reflection in the darkness. Glaring reflection in the darkness. They are unable, that's the effect of the material energy, dazzling. And because of that, they are unable to find the truth of the revealed scriptures. And then Srila Prabhupada is explaining how people cannot understand. Even Bhagavad Gita, people cannot understand. Why? Further down, Prabhupada is saying, undoubtedly, the Bhagavad Gita is accepted as one of the most brilliant stars, the horizon of the spiritual sky, yet the interpretations of this great book of knowledge have so grossly been distorted that every student of the Bhagavad Gita is still in the same darkness of glaring material reflections. So one cannot understand, even though one may read, because by the influence of the material energy, one comes up with one's own interpretations of the Gita. And such students are hardly enlightened by the Bhagavad Gita. And then Srila Prabhupada is talking about what are the instructions that are given in the Bhagavad Gita. Ishvara Sarvabhutanam, and then he's quoting Manmana Bhavamad Bhakto. And then further down, Prabhupada is explaining what is the purpose of all the Vedic literatures, what is the purpose of the Varnashram system. Further down, Prabhupada is writing, therefore the complete social construction is the body of the Lord, and all the parts of the body, namely Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and the Shudras, are meant to serve the Lord's whole body conjointly. Otherwise, the parts become unfit to be coordinated with the supreme consciousness of oneness. Universal consciousness is factually achieved by coordinated service of all concerned to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that alone can ensure total perfection. Very beautiful statement. Universal consciousness is factually achieved by coordinated service of all concerned to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it's a coordinated service. Cooperative, coordinated. So who has to cooperate? All the members of one ashram. It's a coordinated service. So all of them are meant to have only one goal. What is that? Ata Pumbi Dvaja Shreshta Varnashrama Bhagasha Swanashrita Sadharmasya Samsiddhir Haritoshnam. So that is the purpose of all the members. That's the coordinated service. Then there will be total perfection. But then Prabhupada explains, so many people of the modern age, they cannot understand this mystery of Bhakti Yoga. Why? Namam Dushkritano Mudha Prapadyanti Naradhama. So he's explaining that. And then further down, therefore, all advancement of knowledge in the present context of things is being misused by the cats and dogs fighting with one another for sense gratification. And all acquisition of knowledge in science, philosophy, fine arts, nationalism, economic development, religion, and great activities are being spoilt by being used as dresses for dead men. There's no utility in the dresses used for covering a coffin of a dead body, save getting false applause from the ignorant public. So Prabhupada is describing about the modern day people who cannot understand what is the goal of life. They cannot understand what is the goal of studying the scriptures. And that is because they are simply doing useless activities like decorating the dead body. And then to illustrate this or to substantiate this, Prabhupada is quoting from the Bhagavatam, Parabhavastavad Abodhajato. So whatever they do is defeated. As long as one is blind to inquiring after self-realization, all material activities, however great they may be, are all different kinds of defeat because the aim of human life is not fulfilled by such unwanted and profitless activities. So here, mostly Srila Prabhupada is focusing on the first point, and that is what is the goal of all one's activities, what is the goal of self-realization, and why people are not able to achieve that. That is what Srila Prabhupada is describing in great detail. Then he's quoting the verse from the 5th canto of the Bhagavatam, 5.5.6. And after that he writes, therefore, as long as the mind is absorbed in fruitive activities, the mind is understood to be absorbed in nescience. And thus one is sure to be subjected to material bondage in different bodies again and again until one develops a transcendental love for Godhead Vasudeva, the Supreme Person. Okay, so he basically is explaining the various reasons why one cannot understand the goal of human life, the goal of self-realization. Why one cannot understand? Because one is absorbed in what? Fruitive activities, sense gratification. So to the degree one is absorbed in sense gratification, very difficult for one to understand the goal of human life. So therefore, to become absorbed in the transcendental name, quality, form, and activities of the Supreme Person Vasudev means to change the temper of the mind from matter to absolute knowledge. So one has to change the focus of the mind. The temper of the mind means the focus of the mind. One has to change from matter to absolute knowledge, which leads one to the path of absolute realization and thus frees one from the bondage of material contact and engagements in the different bodies. So till now, Srila Prabhupada has basically discussed the first part of the verse, and that is Etavad eva jignasyam tattva jignasunatmanaha. So this is what Srila Prabhupada has been focusing on so far. That is how one must endeavor to come to this ultimate goal of self-realization. Why one is unable to come to that ultimate goal, that is what he has discussed. Now he is coming to the next part, and that is Sarvatra Sarvada. That is what he is discussing from now. Srila Jiva Goswami Prabhupada therefore comments on the word Sarvatra Sarvada in the sense that the principles of Bhakti Yoga or devotional service to the Lord are apt in all circumstances. That is, Bhakti Yoga is recommended in all the revealed scriptures. It is performed by all authorities. It is important in all places. It is useful in all causes and effects, etc. So you can take any number of factors, whether it is time, place, person, qualification, you can name it. Devotional service is applicable in all situations, all persons, all times, all places, everywhere devotional service is applicable. That's the meaning of Sarvatra Sarvada. And now he gives Shastric references to prove this point. Okay, so there are the quotes from Skanda Puran and then Padma Puran. So this verse is from Padma Puran, Skanda Puran, Linga Puran, which says that by scrutinizingly reviewing all the revealed scriptures and judging them again and again, it is now concluded that Lord Narayan is the supreme absolute truth, and thus he alone should be worshipped. The same truth is also indirectly described in the Garud Puran. So he's quoting from the Garud Puran. Even though one may have gone to the other side of all the Vedas, and even though one is well versed in all the revealed scriptures, if one is not a devotee of the Supreme Lord, he must be considered the lowest of mankind. And then Yasyasti Bhaktir Bhagavata Kanchana, he's quoting that. And so here he's basically talking about what is the goal of all the scriptures. Then this interesting verse from the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam. Shabda Brahmani Nishnato na Nishnayat Pare Yadi Shramastasya Shramafalo Hi Adhenum Iva Rakshataha. One may be well versed in all the transcendental literature of the Vedas, but if he fails to be acquainted with the Supreme, then it must be concluded that all of his education is like the burden of a beast, or like one's keeping a cow without milking capacity. So that means it's useless labor. One has read all the scriptures, but one has not understood what is the goal. Then what is the use? It simply becomes shrama. Shrama eva kevalam. Shrama phalo. Okay, now the next verse from 2.7.46, that is from this canto, we had read it already from the 7th chapter. So this verse says how everyone can be elevated to the highest position. The lowest of human beings can be elevated to the highest stage of devotional life if they are trained by the bona fide spiritual master, well versed the transcendental loving service of the Lord. If the lowest can be so elevated, then what to speak of the highest, who are well versed in Vedic knowledge? The conclusion is that devotional service to the Lord is open for all, regardless of who they are. That is the confirmation of its application for all kinds of performance of the service. Therefore, the devotional service of the Lord with perfect knowledge through the training of a bona fide spiritual master is advised for everyone, even if one happens not to be a human being. Even if one is not a human being, Shastra says still one can practice devotional service. And then is to establish this, he's quoting from the Garud Puran, which says what? Kita Pakshi Mriganam cha Harau Sanyasta Chetasam Urdhvam Eva Gatim Manye Kim Punar Yaninam Nrinam. And so Kita Pakshi Mriganam, even the worms, birds, beasts are assured of elevation to the highest perfection of life if they completely surrender to the transcendent loving service of the Lord. Of course, that is the difficulty. How can they surrender? But if they happen to surrender, then even they can achieve the highest perfection. But in those forms of life, it's very difficult to surrender. But even if they surrender. So what to speak of philosophers amongst the human beings? Ki punar jnaninam nrinam. So if birds and beasts can be elevated by devotional service, then what to speak of human beings, and that too philosophers amongst human beings like all of you. Therefore, there is no need to seek properly qualified candidates for discharging devotional service to the Lord. And you can see Prabhupada's mood of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Just like Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu doesn't see who's qualified, who's unqualified. Everyone can become recipient of the Lord's mercy. And you can see Prabhupada portraying that same mood. Let them be either well-behaved or ill-trained. Let them or fools. Let them be either grossly attached or in the renounced state of life. Let them be liberated souls or desirous of salvation. Let them be inexpert in the discharge of devotional service or expert in the same. All of them can be elevated to the supreme position by discharging devotional service under the proper guidance. And then he's quoting Apichet Suduracharo. And then after that he says, even if a person is fully addicted to all sorts of sinful acts, if he happens to be engaged in the loving transcendental service of the Lord under proper guidance, you can see how many times Prabhupada is writing that, under proper guidance, he is to be considered the most perfect holy man without a doubt. And then he's quoting the next verse of the Bhagavad Gita. What is the next verse of the Bhagavad Gita? After this, Mam hi partavya pashritya yepi syu papayonaya sriyo vesha sada shudras tepi yanti param gatim. So then Prabhupada is giving the translation to that. Can attain the highest perfection of life by going back home, back to Godhead, provided he or she takes shelter of the lotus feet in all earnestness. And then note down very important statements. The sincere earnestness is the only qualification that can lead one to the highest perfectional stage of life. And unless and until such real earnestness is aroused, there is a difference between cleanness or uncleanness, learning and non-learning in the material estimation. Okay, so if one develops the sincere earnestness, then it does not matter whether one is materially educated, uneducated, low-born, high-born. All these differences do not matter when one comes to what? Sincere earnestness. That is the only qualification required. So if that qualification is achieved, then all other material qualifications, disqualifications do not matter. Then one can be bird, beast, animal, whatever. It just doesn't matter. If one has sincere earnestness. Then he says, fire is always fire. And thus if someone touches the fire, knowingly or unknowingly, the fire will act in its own way without discrimination. The principle is, Harir Harati Papani Dushta Chitter Api Smritaha. The all-powerful Lord can purify the devotee of all sinful reactions, just as the sun can sterilize all sorts of infections by its powerful rays. Attraction for material enjoyment cannot act upon a pure devotee of the Lord. And then he says there are hundreds and thousands of aphorisms in the revealed scriptures to establish the superiority of bhakti. So then all those quotes is given, Atma Ramascha Muniyo, Kechit Kevalya Bhaktya, and all those he's quoting. And then further down he says, therefore in all continents, in all planets, in all universes, devotional service to the Lord or bhakti yoga is current. That is the statement of Srimad Bhagavatam and allied scriptures. Everywhere means in every part of the creation of the Lords. So, please note down the various meanings of Sarvatra Sarvada. Hmm? So, one meaning of Sarvatra Sarvada we saw is what? No, till now what has been explained? For all types of people. Till now what Srila Prabhupada has discussed through various Shastric references is that devotional service is meant for all types of people, whether one is qualified, not qualified, educated, uneducated, sinful, not sinful, all these qualifications do not matter. Devotional service is meant for everyone. Next point he says is devotional service is meant for all places throughout the creation, all continents, planets, everywhere, all places. That is the second point. Now, the third point he says is devotional service can be performed by all the senses. All the senses and the mind. That's the next point. The Lord can be served by all the senses or even simply by the mind. And to explain this, he quotes the South Indian Brahman. Everyone knows the story of the South Indian Brahman who was making sweet rice in the mind. And then what he does? Yes, he puts his finger just to see if it is hot, and then his finger gets burnt. So that's how even, devotional service can be performed even in the mind. And further down, Prabhupada says, success is guaranteed for a devotee who fully engages any one of his senses in the mode of devotional service. And we know that how different personalities perfected their lives by using one of the senses or one of the process of devotional service. And then the Lord can be served by any ingredient, even the most common commodity, flower, leaf, fruit, or little water, which are available in any part of the universe without cost. And thus the Lord is served universally by the universal entities. Okay. And then the next point he says is, one can serve the Lord by offering the result of one's own work. It does not matter what one does. There's another understanding of this. And that is, one can perform any work. One can perform any work. By performing that work for the Supreme, one achieves perfection. And prove that, he's quoting which verse? Yat karoshi yadashnasi. And then he's explaining that verse basically. And he's quoting a verse from the Skanda Puran, which says that simply by either remembering him, vibrating his holy name, one can attain the perfection of all penance, sacrifice, and this process can be universally followed. And then he's also quoting Akama Sarva Kamava. Okay. Okay. Now the next point he focuses on is devotional service can be performed at all times. At all times. And that is the next paragraph. Even during the annihilation of the material world, the process of Bhakti Yoga can be applied. Kalena Nashta Pralaye Vaniyam. The Lord is worshipped in devastation because he protects the Vedas from being annihilated. He is worshipped in every millennium or yuga. Kriteya Dhyaito Vishnum, that verse. And then he's also quoting a verse from the Vishnu Puran. If even for a moment remembrance of Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of God, that is the greatest illusion and that is the greatest anomaly. Okay, and then the Lord can be worshipped in all stages of life, at all times. Nice examples. So in the womb, one can practice devotional service. Example, Prahlad and Parikshit. Then at the age of 5 years, Dhruva Maharaj. In youth, Ambarish Maharaj. Then last stage of frustration and old age, Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra. Ajamil is even more advanced. Ajamil worshipped the Lord even at the point of death. At the point of death. Dhritarashtra is old age. Ajamil is point of death. And Chitraketu worshipped the Lord even in heaven and in hell. So in this way, devotional service can be practiced at all times. at all times. And then he's quoting from, okay, we don't know. Durvas Muni. Durvas Muni has also supported this view. Mucheta yan namni udite narako api. Simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord, the inhabitants of hell became released from their hellish persecution. So the conclusion of Srimad Bhagavatam is given by Shukdev Goswami to Parishad Maharaj is Etan nirvidyamana nam ichtam akuto bhayam yogi nam nripanirnitam hare namanukirtanam. O king, it is finally decided that everyone, namely those in the renounced order of life, the mystics, the enjoyers of fruitive work, should chant the holy name of the Lord fearlessly to achieve the desired success in their pursuits. So these are all evidences to show that devotional service can be performed by everyone, at all times, in all places, yes, in all stages of life, all that. Now, so Anvayad Vyatirekabhyam, directly and indirectly. So these are all direct evidences. Now, he gives 6 indirect evidences from the scriptures. Indirect. So what? We'll just read one of them. Even though one is well versed in all the Vedas and scriptures, if one is not a devotee of the Supreme Lord, the personality of God, it is considered to be the lowest of man. This is indirect. So it is not a positive statement, it is a negative statement. If one does not worship, what will be the consequence? So these are indirect evidences. If one is not a devotee, he is considered to be the lowest of mankind. Or in the next statement it said, what is the use of Vedic knowledge and penances for one who is devoid of devotional service to the Lord? So these are indirect evidences from the scriptures to show the glory of devotional service. And after those 6 statements, the final conclusion therefore is that the glories of the Lord must be always and everywhere proclaimed. And then further down he says, but adoption of the transcendental devotional service of the Lord has no limit, nor is there any fear of falling down. The process automatically reaches the final stage by the grace of the Lord. Note the point. The process automatically reaches the final stage by the grace of the Lord. What is the final stage? Yes, love of God. That's the final stage. So that final stage can be achieved only by the grace of the Lord. In the preliminary stage of devotional service, there's an apparent requisite for knowledge, but in the highest stage, there's no necessity of such knowledge. The best and guaranteed path of progress is therefore engagement bhakti yoga, pure devotional service. The cream of Srimad Bhagavatam in the foregoing 4 shlokas is sometimes squeezed out by the impersonalists for different interpretations in their favor, but it should be carefully noted that the 4 shlokas were first described by the personality of God himself, and thus the impersonalist has no scope to enter into them because he has no conception of the personality of Godhead. And then Prabhupada is quoting from the Katha Upanishad, Nayam Atma Pravachanena Labhya Na Medhaya Na Bhavda Shrutena Yam Evaisha Vrinute Tena Labhyas Tasyesha Atma Virunute Tanum Swam. The whole matter is explained by the Lord himself, and one who has no approach to the Lord in his personal feature can rarely understand the purport of the Srimad Bhagavatam without being taught by the Bhagavatas in the disciplic succession. Jai Prabhupada ki jai. That's the end of the long commentary. Okay, so now we'll quickly go through the remaining verses of the chapter to conclude. So somebody just read the translations of the remaining verses.
Just follow this conclusion by fixing concentration of mind. And no pride will disturb you, neither in the partial nor in the final devastation.
Okay, so this is the answer to the 4th question of Brahma. What was the 4th question of Brahma? Yes, how can I perform my service of creation without being influenced by pride? So the answer to this is, the Lord is saying, just follow this process that I've told you, the process of bhakti yoga. And if you follow this process, then you will not be affected by pride. Paramena samadhina, with concentration of the mind. Not anyhow, concentration of the mind. Okay, just some important statements from this purport. So a few lines down. Srimad Bhagavatam is the text of the personality of Godhead and his unalloyed devotees, who are also known as the Bhagavatas. And any outsider should have no access to this confidential literature of devotional service. So the impersonalists cannot understand. Therefore, the Lord wants Brahma, and through Brahma, all future devotees of the Lord in the disciplic succession of Brahma, that one should never be misled by the conclusion of the so-called grammarians or by other men with a poor fund of knowledge, but must always fix the mind properly via the parampara system. And further down he says, leaving a few sentences in between. In between, Prabhupada again focuses on that parampara system, bona fide spiritual master and all that. By following the instructions of the bona fide spiritual master in conjunction with the principles of revealed scriptures. So you see these two go together. So one cannot just read scriptures. So the reading of scripture should be in conjunction with following the instructions of the spiritual master. Then the student will rise to the plane of complete knowledge, which will be exhibited by development of detachment from the world of sense gratification. So when one develops knowledge, what is the result of that? Detachment from sense gratification. And this, further down, this detachment from the sensory world is called Brahmabhuta stage of realization, the preliminary stage of transcendental devotional life, Parabhakti. The Brahmabhuta stage of life is also known as the Atmaram stage, in which one is fully satisfied and does not hanker for the world of sense enjoyment. The stage of full satisfaction is the proper situation for understanding the transcendental knowledge of the personality of Godhead. Evam prasanna manaso bhakavad bhakti yogata. And then he's quoting Tesham Satyuktanam Bhajatam Priti Purvakam. Unto the devotees who are constantly engaged in the Lord's transcendental loving service, the Lord, out of his causeless mercy upon the devotee, gives direct instructions so the devotee may make accurate progress on the path of returning home back to Godhead. Okay, and an important point after that, in the next paragraph, in the Gopal Tapani Upanishad, it is said, Gopa Vesho me Purusha Purastat Avir Bhabhuva. The Lord appeared before Brahma as a cowboy. That is, as the original personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna Govinda, who's later described by Brahmaji as Brahma Samhita Chintamani. So that's how the Lord appeared in front of Brahma. Therefore, Lord Sri Krishna is the original form of the Supreme Lord. Krishna is to Bhagwan Swayam. It's also clear from this instruction. Therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam means consciousness of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. And Srimad Bhagavatam is the sound representation of the Lord as much as the Bhagavad Gita is. Thus, the conclusion is that the Srimad Bhagavatam is the science of the Lord, in which the Lord and his abode are perfectly realized. So that's the end of what the Lord taught Brahma. Okay, continue. Read the remaining translations.
Sukdev Goswami said to Maharaj Parikshit, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, after being seen in transcendental form, instructing Brahmaji, the leader of the living entities, disappeared.
Next.
On the disappearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari, who is the object of transcendental enjoyment for the senses of the devotees, Brahma, with folded hands, began to recreate the universe, full with living entities as it was previously.
Continue.
Thus, once upon a time, the forefather of living entities and the father of religiousness, Lord Brahma situated himself in acts of regulative principles, desiring self-interest for the welfare of all living entities.
Aage.
Narada, the most dear of the inheritor sons of Brahma, always ready to serve his father, strictly follows the instruction of his father by his mannerly behavior, meekness, and self-control, and sense control.
Narada very much pleased his father and desired to know all about the energies of Vishnu, the master of all energies. For Narada was the greatest of all sages and greatest of all devotees, O King.
The great sage Narada also inquired in detail from his father, Brahma, the great grandfather of all the universe, after seeing him well satisfied.
Thereupon, the supplementary Vedic literature, Srimad Bhagavatam, which was described by the personality of Godhead and which contains 10 characteristics, was told with satisfaction by the father Brahma to his son Narada.
Okay, so basically what is being explained is parampara, right? So a Lord told Brahmaji, then Narada, he was also very inquisitive, so he inquired from Brahma, and Brahma told Narada the same Bhagavatam, okay, but he expanded upon it, and he told Narada, Brahma told Narada, because he was satisfied with Narada. Okay, here there's an important point. So Prabhupada writes here, one should not misunderstand by wrong interpretations that the Lord spoke only 4 verses and that therefore all the rest of the 17,994 verses are useless. The 10 characteristics, as will be explained in the next chapter, require so many verses just to explain them properly. To explain 4 verses, all the remaining verses are required. So Brahmaji had also advised Narada previously that he should expand the idea that he had heard from Brahmaji. So each one in the parampara expands. So similarly, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed this to Rupa Goswami in a nutshell, but disciple Rupa Goswami expanded this very elaborately. And the same subject was further expanded by Jiva Goswami and even further by Srila Vishwanath Thakur. We are just trying to follow in the footsteps of all these authorities. And that's what Prabhupada did. He further expanded according to his own realizations and according to what is required in contemporary times. Srimad Bhagavatam is not like ordinary fiction or mundane literature. It is unlimited in strength, and however one may expand it according to one's own ability, Bhagavatam still cannot be finished by such expansion. Because Bhagavatam means what? Krishna. And Krishna is unlimited. So therefore, from 4 verses to unlimited verses. So sometimes people ask, we hear in heavenly planets there are more verses, here there are more. What more verses? Unlimited verses can be there. So therefore Prabhupada says, Srimad Bhagavatam being the sound representation of the Lord is simultaneously explained in 4 verses and in 4 billion verses, all the same, in as much as the Lord is smaller than the atom and bigger than the unlimited sky. Such is the potency of Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, 45.
In succession, O King, the great sage Narada instructed Srimad Bhagavatam unto the unlimitedly powerful Vyasadeva, who meditated in devotional service upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth, on the bank of the river Saraswati.
Okay. 46.
O King, your questions as to how the universe became manifested from the gigantic form of the personality of Godhead, as well as other questions, I shall answer in detail by explanation of the 4 verses already mentioned.
Thus in the Bhagavan purports of the 2nd canto, 9th chapter Srimad Bhagavatam entitled Answers by citing the Lord's version. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Samved Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.